life had always been predictable. I lived in Cedar Ridge, Colorado, a quiet town where every face was familiar, and the rhythm of life was steady. The mornings smelled like fresh coffee and the crisp mountain air. The sound of birds chirping outside my window was my daily alarm clock, followed by the scent of pancakes drifting from the kitchen where my mom, as she did every day, prepared breakfast with love. My job was nothing extraordinary. I worked at a local hardware store, a place where the scent of wood and paint mixed in the air, where old men came in with stories of home projects and young couples browsed, excited to build their first home together. It was a simple life, but it was mine and I loved it. There was comfort in routine, in knowing exactly how each day would unfold. I had friends who had been in my life since childhood. We still gathered on weekends for backyard barbecues or late-night talks under the stars. There were plans, dreams, things I wanted to do someday. But I never imagined how suddenly everything could change, how one normal morning could become the last of the life I had always known. That day, like any other, I woke up before sunrise. The kitchen light flickered softly as I poured myself a cup of coffee, scrolling through my phone absent-mindedly. A message from my mom popped up. "Love you, drive safe today." I smiled, not realizing those words would soon take on a meaning I could never have imagined. I grabbed my keys, my mind already shifting to the tasks ahead at work. Restocking shelves, helping customers, maybe grabbing lunch with my coworker Mark at the diner down the street. The morning was peaceful, the sky painted with soft pastels of dawn, the roads quiet except for the occasional jogger or early commuter. I remember stopping at a red light, my fingers drumming lightly on the steering wheel as I glanced at my phone. Just a quick look. A message from a friend. Nothing urgent, but enough to make me look away for a second too long. The light turned green. I pressed the gas. I never saw the truck coming. The world around me exploded in sound. Metal crunching, glass shattering, my body jolting as if thrown by an invisible force. The pain was instant and overwhelming, a searing, crushing sensation that swallowed everything. My breath hitched, my vision blurred, and my thoughts scattered like leaves in a storm. And then, just as quickly as it had come, the pain disappeared. A stillness unlike anything I had ever known settled over me. The noise faded. My body no longer hurt. In fact, I barely felt my body at all. It was as if something had separated me from it, lifting me into a space where time itself no longer seemed to exist. I blinked and suddenly I was above everything, watching. The twisted wreck of my car lay beneath me, the once sturdy steel now crushed beyond recognition. People ran toward it, shouting, some on their phones calling for help. I saw my own body inside, slumped against the seat, motionless. It should have terrified me. It should have sent me into panic. But instead I felt detached. A quiet understanding settled in my chest. Something was happening, something beyond what I had ever believed possible. But this was only the beginning. Before we continue, I have something special for you. If you want to be featured in our next video and receive a personalized message, comment your name and city below. Imagine seeing your name mentioned in front of thousands of people, your own moment of recognition, your minute of fame. And don't forget to leave a like on this video to help our community grow. Also, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and join us. We are building something special here, a place where we explore the extraordinary, the spiritual, and the unknown together. Let's continue this journey. You won't want to miss what happens next. I should have felt fear. Seeing my own body lifeless inside the wreckage should have sent waves of panic through me. But it didn't. Instead, a strange calmness wrapped around me, as if I had been removed from the weight of the world itself. The voices of those below, strangers rushing to my aid, the distant wail of sirens, felt muffled, distant, like echoes in a dream. I hovered, suspended in a space between what I had known and what was to come. The wreckage became smaller beneath me as I felt myself being drawn upward, not by force, but by something unseen yet undeniable. It was as if an invisible current had taken hold, gently but firmly pulling me away from everything familiar. Then the world below vanished. I found myself surrounded by darkness, not an empty, lifeless void, but a space filled with depth, with movement as if the very air was alive. A tunnel stretched before me, not of stone or metal, but of shifting energy shimmering between light and shadow. It wasn't confining but vast, limitless, stretching beyond what my mind could comprehend. I moved without effort, gliding through this passage, drawn toward something beyond sight but deeply known. Time had no meaning here. There was no sense of seconds ticking away, no rush, no delay. I simply existed, flowing forward, weightless and unburdened. Then I felt it, a presence. At first I couldn't see them, but I knew they were there. Beings watching, waiting. Not with judgment, not with hostility, but with something else, something greater. Their presence pressed into me, not in a way that crushed or overwhelmed, but in a way that made me aware of my own smallness, of the vastness of what lay beyond. And then, far ahead, the light appeared. It wasn't just a brightness. It was alive. It pulsed with an intelligence, a warmth that reached out like arms welcoming me home. It wasn't a blinding, harsh light, but one that radiated peace, understanding, love beyond words. Yet even as I was drawn toward it, I became aware of something else, a darkness behind me. Not the kind of darkness found in the night sky, not a simple absence of light. This was different. It had weight, a presence of its own. It didn't just exist, it reached, it pulled, it whispered. The contrast between the two forces became sharper, more defined. The light ahead was welcoming, calling me forward, its warmth filling me with a sense of belonging, of purpose. The darkness behind was not empty, it was full, thick with something unseen yet unmistakable. It wanted me. Then I heard the voice. Keep moving. It wasn't spoken in the way human voices are. It didn't reach my ears, it resonated through my being, vibrating through every fiber of what I was in that moment. It carried authority, a weight that made the darkness shrink back. I moved toward the light, and as I did, the pull of the darkness weakened. But I could still feel it there, watching, waiting for any hesitation. The tunnel widened, and I could see them now. Figures standing within the radiance, beings of light more magnificent than anything I had ever imagined. Their forms were distinct, yet their presence was beyond human comprehension. They weren't just beings, they were powerful, radiant, purposeful. They didn't speak with words, yet I understood them completely. And what they showed me next would change everything I thought I knew. As I moved deeper into the light, the figures before me became clearer. They were unlike anything I had ever seen, beings of pure radiance, yet unmistakably present. They weren't simply standing, they were alive with purpose, their very existence humming with energy and meaning. They weren't just watching me, they were guiding me. The light around them wasn't a simple glow, it moved, pulsed with a living awareness. It wasn't just illumination, it was truth itself, wrapping around me like an embrace, filling every part of my being with a warmth beyond anything earthly. I should have felt small in their presence, but I didn't. I felt known. Then, in an instant, the world shifted. I was no longer just standing in this ethereal space, I was seeing. Not with my eyes, but with something deeper. A vision unfolded before me, more real than anything I had ever known. I saw Earth, but not as we see it. I saw layers, dimensions, a reality beyond the physical world we know. I saw battles, but not with swords or guns. These were not wars of men, they were wars of spirit. Forces of darkness and forces of light clashing, contending, struggling over every soul, every nation, every decision. The veil was lifted, and I saw how the world truly worked. Every prayer whispered in faith was not just heard, it moved things. It sent ripples into the spiritual realm, pushing back forces unseen. And then my eyes were drawn to something urgent. A moment in time. A shift. 2025. I didn't know how I knew, but I did. This was the turning point. I saw nations on edge, leaders standing at crossroads, the world teetering on the brink of something irreversible. There was unrest, division, a deep unease spreading like wildfire. People were searching for answers, but confusion reigned. And then I saw him. A leader who had once stood at the forefront but had been cast aside. And now he was returning. It wasn't just about politics. It was something much bigger. I saw forces rallying against him, not because of who he was, but because of what his return represented. The spiritual realm was in an uproar. There were plans, alliances, things happening behind closed doors, agendas woven in secrecy designed not just to shape history, but to alter the very course of the world's spiritual battle. And then the voice spoke again. This is why you are here. You must understand what is coming. The scene before me grew more vivid. I saw movements rising, not just in government halls but in churches, in homes, in the hearts of ordinary people. Some stood firm in faith, their prayers blazing like fire, piercing the darkness. Others were blind to what was happening, falling into deception, losing themselves to the distractions of the age. The battle was intensifying. And then I saw the church. Some places burned bright with power, true faith, real conviction, voices lifted in unity. They were standing, fighting, resisting. But others had fallen. They had traded truth for comfort. They had lost their fire. I saw preachers once bold now watering down their words, afraid of offense. I saw places where once there was prayer, now there was only emptiness. The church was at a crossroads too. And then the vision grew darker. I saw chains, shadows, a creeping force moving across nations. A plan unfolding, one that had been in motion for decades, hidden beneath the surface of politics, economics, culture. The enemy was moving faster than ever before. The weight of what I was seeing pressed into me. This wasn't some distant prophecy. It was happening now. And 2025 was the breaking point. Then, suddenly, I felt a pull, something shifting again. I turned back toward the light, and as I did, the presence of something greater surrounded me. And there, waiting for me, stood Jesus. I turned, and there he was. There are no words in any language that could truly describe him. No painting, no vision, no earthly comparison could capture the depth of his presence. He wasn't just light, though he radiated a brilliance beyond anything I had ever known. He wasn't just human, though he stood before me in a form that I could recognize. He wasn't just powerful, though every fiber of my being trembled in his presence. He was everything. The moment I looked into his eyes, I understood what it meant to be fully known. Every thought I had ever had, every failure, every question, every secret corner of my soul, he knew it all. And yet, in that knowing, there was no condemnation. Only truth. Only love. His gaze held the depth of eternity, yet when he looked at me, it was as if I was the only soul that had ever existed. I felt my spirit tremble, my very essence coming undone in the weight of his glory. And yet, I had never felt so whole. Then he spoke. You have questions. It wasn't a question itself. It was a statement, one that reached through me, exposing the very core of my existence. I did. 1,000,000 of them. Why was I here? What was I seeing? What did it all mean? But only one question managed to leave my lips. What is coming? His expression remained steady, his voice calm but filled with an authority that shook me to my core. The world is changing. And my people must be ready. He lifted his hand and suddenly I saw. The visions returned, but now they were sharper, more vivid, burned into my very soul. I saw nations trembling. I saw leaders standing at crossroads. I saw people choosing light or darkness, truth or deception, fear or faith. And then I saw 2025. It was no longer just a year. It was a battle, a moment in time where everything would shift. I saw storms, both in the natural and in the spirit. I saw wars rising, not just of nations but of ideologies, of souls. I saw revival in some places, people turning back to God, crying out for truth. But I also saw deception growing, a counterfeit movement pulling people away, convincing them of half-truths wrapped in beautiful lies. And then I saw the church. Some were standing boldly, their faith like an unshakable fortress, their prayers like weapons against the encroaching darkness. But others, many others, had fallen silent. They had been lulled into comfort, into complacency, unaware that the battle had already begun. Then Jesus turned his eyes back to me, and in that moment I knew. I had been sent here for a reason. The world was not ready for what was coming. But those who listened, those who chose to stand, they would see his power move in ways never seen before. If this message reached your heart, let it be known. Type AMM in the comments to declare your faith and receive God's blessings today. And if this story is moving you, don't forget to leave a like. It helps more people hear this message, more lives to be touched. Together, as a community, we can spread the truth. The weight of his words settled deep within me. This was not just a vision. It was a calling. I stood before him, still trembling, still overwhelmed by the magnitude of what I had seen. The world was on the edge of something monumental. A shift was coming, one that would separate those who stood firm in truth from those who would fall into deception. But why had I been shown this? Why me? Jesus lifted his hand once more, and instantly I understood. The battle I had witnessed wasn't just for the leaders of nations, for pastors and pulpits, or for the spiritually elite. It was for everyone. Every man, woman, and child was a part of this war, whether they realized it or not. I saw them, ordinary people, living ordinary lives, completely unaware of the forces moving around them. Some walked through their days consumed by distractions, their hearts weighed down by the trivial. Others were trapped in fear, their souls paralyzed by uncertainty. And yet there were some, a remnant. Their eyes were open. Their prayers were like fire pushing back the darkness. They weren't famous, they weren't powerful by the world's standards, but in the spiritual realm, they were warriors. I felt the urgency surge through me. The world was entering a time when neutrality would no longer be an option. People would have to choose. Truth or deception. Light or darkness. Fear or faith. I turned to Jesus, my voice barely more than a whisper. What must I do? He looked at me, and in his eyes I saw everything. Tell them. 2 words. A command, not a suggestion. This message was not meant for me alone. It was meant for everyone. Those who had ears to hear would wake up, would recognize the times we were living in, would stand firm when the storm came. But those who ignored it, they would be swept away. The light around me began to shift. Something was changing. I felt it before I saw it, a pull, a force drawing me backward. My time here was ending. I didn't want to leave. Not yet. I had seen so much, but I felt there was still more to know, more to understand. But as I turned my eyes back to Jesus, I knew this was enough. He had given me everything I needed. The rest would be up to me. And then, in a single breath, I was gone. I felt it before I saw it, the pull, the sudden rush, the shift of reality itself. The warmth of his presence began to fade, replaced by something colder, heavier. The brilliant light dimmed, and I felt myself being drawn away, back through the passage, back toward the world I had left behind. For a moment I panicked. I didn't want to leave. Not now. Not after everything I had seen. There was still more to understand, more to witness, but it was not my choice to make. A force stronger than my own will was pulling me back, and before I could even process what was happening, the world around me collapsed into darkness. Then pain. Searing, suffocating, crushing pain. My chest burned, my body ached, and I felt the weight of something pressing down on me. I gasped, and air rushed into my lungs like fire. My ears were filled with noise, beeping voices, movement. I forced my eyes open. The blinding fluorescent lights of a hospital room stared back at me. The smell of antiseptic filled my nostrils. Machines beeped rhythmically beside me. The world was too bright, too loud, too real. For a moment I couldn't comprehend where I was. Had it all been a dream? A hallucination? But then I felt it. A presence lingering. A warmth still wrapped around me, faint but undeniable. And then, in the corner of the room I saw it. A figure. Glowing. Watching. I blinked and it was gone. Tears filled my eyes. It was real. Everything I had seen, everything I had heard, it was all real. I had been sent back for a reason. The days that followed were a blur of doctors, nurses, and whispered conversations. They couldn't explain how I had survived, how my body had endured the trauma. They told me I had been clinically dead for over 5 minutes. But I knew the truth. I hadn't just come back. I had been sent back. I wrestled with the weight of it. How could I possibly explain what I had seen? Who would believe me? But then I heard his voice again. Tell them? The command was clear, unshakable. This wasn't a suggestion. I had been given a message, and now it was my responsibility to share it. And so I began. I told my story. I told of the battle raging beyond what we see. I told of the urgency of the coming shift, of the choice every person must make. I told them that prayer matters, that faith matters, that now is the time to wake up. Some listened, some didn't, but that wasn't for me to control. I had done my part. And as I lay in that hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, I whispered a prayer. Use me. Yellow Heart, if this story has touched your heart, we invite you to be part of our community. We don't do this for money, we don't earn anything from these videos. We do this because we believe in this message. If you believe too, your like and subscription would mean the world to us. It helps us reach more people, spread more truth, and continue sharing these powerful experiences. So if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button and join us. Let's walk this journey together. I left that hospital a different person. The world around me looked the same streets, the same buildings, the same sky stretching infinitely above. But I was not the same. Something inside me had changed forever. The weight of what I had seen, what I had been called to share, never left me. It sat in my chest like a fire that refused to be extinguished. Every conversation, every moment of silence, every face I passed on the street, I saw them differently now. I saw them as souls standing at a crossroads. Some were awake. Some were completely unaware of the battle waging around them. And some were already slipping away. I knew I had a responsibility. Not to convince, not to argue, but to warn, to tell them what I had seen, to sound the alarm before it was too late. The world is about to change. Everything I saw, the storm coming, the deception spreading, the battle intensifying, it's already happening. We are standing at the edge of something monumental. 2025 is not just another year. It is a moment in history that will demand a choice. The forces of darkness are moving faster than ever. But so is God. And those who choose truth, who choose to stand, who choose to pray, they will see his power like never before. But there is no more time to be passive. No more time to sit on the sidelines. This is the moment of decision. And now the choice is yours. This is just the beginning. If this message has spoken to you, I urge you, keep going. There is something even more powerful, more revealing waiting for you. Click on the video appearing on the screen now. It's a message that could change your life forever. And if you haven't already, join us. Subscribe, like this video, and let's walk this journey together. This is more than a channel, it's a movement. A community of those who seek truth. Keep watching. Keep seeking. The next revelation is waiting for you. Click now.